as promised, I want to give an update on my vitrectomy surgery.
Yay, it's done, and this should help a lot of people.
I hope that I can shed some light on the journey from my perspective that I've been on, that she's shared with me.
Oh yeah.
And it was very, very challenging, very scary process. And so obviously this is an update and kind of a final synopsis on everything from the retinal tear to the surgery to the healing, and all the steps in between. So I'm not going to talk a lot about what is the vitreous and all that. I'll just give a little bit of that, the origin of the story. Mm-hmm. And that is that one night, later in the evening, right, I had something go wrong with my eye, and I told my wife I feel like a blood vessel burst or something inside of my eye. I couldn't see very well.
Yeah, it was just like a poof.
And had no idea what was happening. It was pretty scary. And so we called. I had just established a relationship with an ophthalmologist. We called, and there was an emergency contact or message service, yeah. And got in touch with him. Long story short, I went in after hours on a Friday night. He said, yeah, I think you have a retinal tear. You have got to go to the Retina Center in the morning. So we made arrangements. I went into the Retina Center. The doctor there, the specialist, confirmed that I had a tear in my retina. Why? Because as we age, all of us, we have this vitreous sac in our eyes. And every single one of us has this condition where the vitreous shrinks away from the back of the eye. I didn't know this. Every human being. Yeah. And the vitreous is a gel. It's kind of like a sac. You see through it. It's got a certain viscosity. It is an embryonic remnant, as I am told. It's a vestige of from when you were being formed in the womb.
It's what floaters are floating in.
Yeah.
Basically, when you see the floaters.
Yeah.
In your eyes.
So what happened with me is, unfortunately, I was a statistic. I was one of those people where the vitreous was pulling away from the back of the eye, the retina, and it's attached. It's stuck to the retina, and sticking and shrinking at the same time. It pulled a literal tear in my retina. From there, it continued. The tear continued to bleed because it was bridged by a blood vessel. So in other words, I had this little torn flap in a small area of the back of my retina, and when it tore, there was a blood vessel from the tear to the rest of the retina. So that kept pulling and rebleeding as it would rebleed, I would lose vision again and again. I would start to get a little vision back, but I would lose it, and it was very discouraging.
So we went back, needless to say.
I went back multiple times.
Very smart to keep going back if you are worried about something, yeah. Because it's your eyes. I mean, it's very important.
So the first procedure that when I went in to see the retina specialist, the doctor, they ended up having to tack the retina back around the tear. I was very fortunate in that I didn't have a detached retina, which is yes. Kind of a lot worse. And a lot more involved in terms of treatment and healing.
And that was just a quick laser surgery the next day after
so
initial thing.
It was all pretty traumatic for me. I've never had anybody sticking needles in my eye or anything like that. They had to put the lidocaine in. But I don't want you to be afraid of this. If you're going down this path, it's an eye opener. Pardon the pun.
But they numbed it up, so
they numbed my eye. They went in.
Fine.
It wasn't as big of a deal as I would. I'm glad I didn't know about it before I went in, but exactly what would happen. So they numbed the eye. Then they took me in the other room and they lasered around that tear, and it essentially welded it back to the wall of the eye, right? Because the retina is like a film. And if you let that tear progress, the whole retina can peel off of the back of the eye wall like wallpaper. And that becomes a detachment. And again, that's very involved.
And you can't just let that go. You have to have that fixed, or
right.
You lose your sight.
So my friends, I did not drive for over a month. I just couldn't do it safely. I didn't feel it was right. I was very uncomfortable, and that was depressing. So we have a little breeze here. So I went back and forth because they would, I would re-bleed, and they would say, well, hopefully that's the last time that will bleed. Maybe it's torn through and done, and you'll start to, over several months, that will start to dissipate. The blood in your eye will start to dissipate. It'll fade away slowly but surely, because it is, after all, just blood. And you'll be left with some floaters, and they say, but we can clean that up for you. And I say, well, what is that? And they said, we go in there and basically vacuum that stuff out. We suck that out, and we can clean up the tear again with some laser and some sort of blade that they insert into your eye. And I said, no thanks, I'm just going to let it heal. Well, it wouldn't heal, it wouldn't stop bleeding. Fast forward a month and maybe a week later, I had to go in for surgery. And that was a very scary process to me, because it was the unknown, and
it was your good eye.
And it was my good eye. And
so that's not cool.
Yeah, this was my dominant eye. And when I finally said, okay, I give up, I think you're right. They said, would you do this if it were you? And the doctor said, absolutely.
And they were the same surgeons that operated on our ophthalmologist eye when he had a tear.
Right.
It was actually a detachment, I think.
No, his was just a tear.
Oh, a tear.
A tear, yeah. But let me tell you something very important to understand, and this is in all of medicine. The thing that I asked, very simple thing, will my eye be okay? And they said,
probably, maybe.
We think so.
We hope so.
And I said, no, like really.
Like, I want a definite.
And they're like, we can't do that. In medicine, they cannot do that. And it's one thing when you're going, I'd never had surgeries prior to this past couple of years. I had a toe removed 10 years ago. To me, that was not really surgery. It was just an amputation. Well, it was an amputation, not just an. But I'd never had any kind of invasive surgery. And then, so this was the third in
a year.
A year.
Less than a year.
2 hernias, and then I had my eye blow out. So I was very scared. But with the other surgeries, it was, you may die. Okay, you may be injured. It's things like that you had to sign. You had to sign a release saying, this may happen, that may happen. Here's the interesting thing. When I was facing this surgery, they made me come into the billing department and sign a release. And if I wanted to pay a down payment, I paid then. But there I learned that I was more afraid to lose my eye than to die.
You're like, I see this part about death and all that, that's fine, but losing the eye?
Yeah,
no.
they were. So I had to sign this,
and
I realize this is not funny, but I'm trying to bring levity. But I'm looking at this doc. They said, okay, so we'll schedule it for tomorrow. I don't remember. Was it?
Yeah,
I think
it was.
And here you just have to
later.
come in the office. You have to sign some papers, and we'll talk about billing. And so I'm looking at this sheet of paper, and this very big bold print. There's 10 bullet points or so that say, you may die. You may go blind from infection. You may be you may have double vision as a result of this. You may have vision loss. You may have damage to different parts of the eye that cause vision loss,
You have to cover
on and on.
all the bases.
Basically, I'm reading, you may go blind. This may make things way worse. And I had a smaller problem that I was trying to let resolve on its own, and it wouldn't. And again, that was very frustrating and depressing. It's an unusual situation where it's one thing, you have a tear, okay, you deal with that, or you have a detachment, even worse, you deal with that. You go right into the standard of care, the treatment, and you progress. But I was stuck in this limbo because I had a tear that was addressed, it was repaired, but it kept rebleeding and rebleeding and rebleeding. So it went on and on and on. So there I
and
was.
each time it rebled, it blinded him.
Yeah.
Couldn't see anything. It
Yeah.
would get better, then it
And
would
the
get worse.
and the
Better,
periods
worse,
where I
better,
could
worse.
see a little bit, like I could see silhouettes and forms of
Yeah.
people, not much. Those were very limited. So I was essentially blind in that eye for over a month. And there's nothing like it. I mean, I talked about how I've done this, from time to time to see what it's like to have just one eye, or
But
walk around.
You can just go like that.
Yeah, or walk around with my eyes closed to see how it would be. Just if nothing else, to have empathy for people who suffer from blindness, and curiosity. And there's nothing like not being able to go like this and say, okay, that was enough of that. Or, God forbid, like this.
Yeah.
So you can't get the full experience. I got the full experience. Never want to have it again. I cannot tell you the depths of despair that I went into when it just kept happening, and I was in the middle of the night just having dark imaginings.
Yeah.
Like
Like
okay, what if
flashes
it
of
happens
light
to this one too, and what if both of them go wrong, and you can fall prey to your own imagination, if you will. So I had to look at this document, and I'm realizing, oh God, I'm agreeing to do this. And the doctors, they're very matter of fact, and they're not going to say, we're supposed to tell you all that, but you're going to be fine. They won't do that. They play the game. They know, because it's a law of averages, that eventually some poor person is going to have that problem that's listed, one of those problems, or a couple of those problems. So they can't, in all fairness and being completely honest, say, no, none of that's going to happen. It would be foolish, if you really think about it, for them to say that.
You never know. I mean,
so that was really, really scary. And I know I've spent a lot of time on that, but that was the biggest issue for me. So, right?
And also, when you have a vitrectomy, it can cause cataracts to come on much quicker.
Very important point.
So
Yeah.
that was another reason that he wanted to hold off. If he didn't have to have that done, then
Yeah.
of course, we don't want to.
Yeah, please look. I'm going to put a link below to another man's videos. There's a series of them that I found very edifying, very helpful regarding vitrectomy, the surgery. This fellow did not have the tear that I had. He simply had floaters. A lot of people have floaters. You may have seen them. Some have them so bad that it causes great despair, and it's greatly distracting to be working and have trash in your eye. It's depressing and frustrating, and there's a lot of these people live these lives for years. This guy, I think, was 5 to 7 years of this pure hell, because, like me, he had an otherwise good eye, and he didn't want to risk losing his eye. So they tell you those situations are very rare. They'll give you the statistics, and it is very rare. They have a 90-some% success rate without issue. And issue could mean, you get an infection that can be treated, or you get something that can be treated and corrected. But it's very rare to lose your eye over this. And you have to find a competent surgeon. So you need to first, I think, find a competent ophthalmologist, who then refers you to the best surgery center or retinal care facility.
Yeah.
The place that I went had, I think, 4 or 5 partners, and I visited with them all over the course of this, because I kept going back in for these rebleeds and flashing light. That was by the way, that was the symptom. The flashing light was a symptom.
Like
Unfortunately, I didn't catch it. I thought it was some weird light phenomenon. Was it the night before or the morning? That morning.
Yeah.
And by that night, that flashing light led to bleeding in my eye. And flashing light is flashing, arcing colors and light. That is symptomatic of a retinal tear or detachment. So you need to get in right away if you ever have any weird signs or weird things going on with your eye. Furthermore, have a relationship with an ophthalmologist. You cannot afford not to, regardless of your age. This happens to young and old. is more likely, I think, as you age, because when you get around 55 or 60, that's when your vitreous starts to shrink in your eyes. It shrinks forward from the back of your eyes.
So you had the surgery.
I had the surgery
on a Wednesday.
and it was fine.
It was fine.
I went in to the hospital.
Took an hour.
As you might expect, with my penchant for drama, as you can tell, I was quite apprehensive. And when we got in there, walked in the doors, this surgical center in Wilmington was called the Pavilion, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And top notch. I mean, kudos to them. It was like entering the lobby of a very nice hotel, very clean, very calming.
And they had all kinds of people that would direct you around.
Seemed like they were overstaffed and very professional. God forbid we had gone through this during the pandemic. But it was very, very something reassuring in the triage or what have you. They just brought me to the right people and were very polite and timely and brought me back there and got me prepped and asked me questions and explained things to me. The doctor came in, talked to me, and I gotta say I was kind of okay. Let's do this.
Yeah.
I was kind of ready for it, and I was going to be awake for the surgery. So the anesthetician came in and told me that she would put something in me to kind of calm me and quiet me and just keep me relaxed, and then kind of shock me, knock me out a little bit for a few minutes.
And
when they prepped me in the surgical room, the operating room, but I was awake. I don't really recall those moments where I was not fully conscious.
It's like being really drunk.
But so I was laying there, and I was very calm. I was just an eye. They had me all, I'm sure, masked and draped, and I was just an eye to the doctor and the assistant. And they put 3 ports. I think that they put several ports in your eye, so they just kind of poke holes in your eyeball, very carefully, very methodically, very well trained, all very precision. And they go in. And they said, we're going to clean up the tear with some sort of blade, I think. And then just kind of, I guess, remove that flap of skin maybe. Put some more lasering around there. And he actually lasered the circumference of my retina. Just as a little bit of overkill to tack everything back. Because this is like, think of it like, weak Velcro layer. That is, it's Velcroed to the back. This retina is Velcroed to the back, the eye wall, and it can easily jimmy loose and tear off and then float away like wallpaper. So he tacked that all the way around so that wouldn't happen in the future. I don't know how prudent that is, or I don't know enough to make any judgment, but I'm kind of glad.
You've been doing this a long time, and they are the best.
So he had explained to me, he said, what we're going to do is we're going to take that mass out, that vitreous and all that blood. We're going to just suck that out. So they've got a light in there. They've got some sort of blade. They've got the laser in there. I don't know. And he said, we're going to remove all of that. I'm so scientific. And then when we do that, we have
all that stuff out.
We have to balance that structure of your eye, because we're removing mass from your eye. We then put a bubble in your eye to compensate, right? Something to take up that void. As your eye heals and slowly replaces with humorous fluid or saline or whatever.
Saline fluid,
whatever your body produces to fill that gap. So that was to be a very weird and frustrating and experience that
you had to look through.
Required a lot of patience. So I had to look. Basically, it was like a level line in the middle of my eye. When it was all done, when the doctor was done in the operating room, he said, "Okay, I'm finished up. We're cleaning you up." Everything went very well, and I was very relieved to hear that. And they withdrew everything, did what they had to do, and wheeled me back. I'm still awake. And then he came back in the room and reiterated that everything went really well. So glad to hear that. and he told me that
He
it was,
said that quite a bit.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And that's very, very reassuring, for not wanting to make any promises. He made sure to reassure me several times that things went really well. And then subsequently that I was healing really well. So he explained to me that it would be several weeks for these floaters to dissipate
Weeks to months.
and the bubble to shrink down. And the bubble looks like it's going down in your eye. It looks like a planet lowering in your eye, and you get more and more visibility available as this hemisphere lowers in your eye, right? I can't explain it.
But it's really up on the top of your eye, because the way you see is the
Everything is
opposite of-
reversed. So
yeah.
really the bubble is shrinking up into the top of the eyeball.
And it's holding everything up there, right?
And I had lots of floaters and things, blood cells, basically, lots of blood cells. The little blood cells that didn't get sucked out with the vitreous. So that was my vitrectomy, and it took some weeks. It's been a month or more.
It was the 3rd.
And now I've
No, the 30th. August
as
30th.
I've progressed, I can see so well. Oh, I must say, when I started to get my vision back, it looked like double vision, and that scared the hell out of me,
yeah.
because I'd signed that thing that said you could have double vision, and I thought, oh my God, is this the rest of my life? It was double vision, and I could barely drive. It was just
You
scary.
can barely drive anyway. So.
That's always been a joke. Yeah.
I'm the driver in the family.
So anyway, it that resolved, and I was very thankful for that. I know there's some stuff that I will miss. I'll try to put that in the description. Please read the description, and please read the comments, because there are going to be a lot of people who have had experiences that have valuable things to share with you. There are going to be links to other videos in the description. So description and comments are a must. I appreciate yours. I would really appreciate it if you try to stay positive. I wanted to do this as a public service. I wanted to document my journey with this, and that is why I'm doing this. I was frightened by a lot of the comments. A lot of people told me prior to surgery. I had one fella say, "I got an infection and lost my eye, man. Don't do it." That's
Oh, geez.
not helpful.
No.
That's not helpful. And that person didn't tell me any contraindications or
Anything else?
anything else that was wrong with
just the
him,
negative
and
part.
just the negative. And he didn't sound articulate about it. I feel for him, and I had to do this. So keep your comments constructive and helpful to those who are going down this road. And the main
tough
thing
road.
is know that there are lots of very competent firms and doctors out there.
Oh yeah.
So I wish you all the best, any of you who are going through this. And again, description and comments.
Don't be scared. You're gonna get through it.
Yes, yes.
We always get through
I kept having people and life itself trying to reassure me and affirm, but I was being a baby, and it's understandable. Okay.
Definitely.
So, all right. Thanks. I hope that I updated
Thanks for
on
watching.
everything. Thank you for watching, and thank you all so much for your well wishes and your support through this. I hope it's kind of over, but when something like this happens, you always have to watch it. Hopefully it won't happen to the other eye.
Dun, dun, dun.
Oh yeah. And the surgery cost was about $10,000 plus. Yeah, so very, very, very expensive. We didn't have the right kind of insurance, so it's self-pay. Hopefully you're covered. I'm so close to 65. Medicare would have covered it. Anyway, be well. Thank you again. Love to all.